Welcome in to this Monday morning Oxford Exxon podcast. Chase Parham and Neal McCready, sort of the Clark Ford studio, still remote this morning. Neal was recovering, and he's making progress, ahead of schedule, dominating the therapy and all those kind of things. So we'll talk some basketball today, Ole Miss and Auburn. Over the weekend, the Rebels fall 91-77 against a really good freaking basketball team at the Pavilion. So we'll discuss the game, the environment, the road now ahead as Ole Miss. They're at South Carolina. 5:30 Central start on that tomorrow night, by the way. We can't get those for home games. If I got on the road, we get the midweek. 5:30 start there in Columbia at the Colonial Center, I believe is what that is called there in Columbia, South Carolina. And then at Kentucky the next Tuesday. So Saturday off for the Rebels. And then the next Tuesday, they got a couple before they face Missouri at home, which will be a win in a little less than a couple weeks. Missouri even losing to Vanderbilt and Columbia on Saturday. So we'll look at the SEC. Ole Miss baseball suffered quite the pitching loss over the weekend. Xavier Rivas out for the season with a torn UCL. Tommy John surgery coming for definitely what was going to be either a number one or number two starter for the Rebels this season. So we'll discuss that a little bit, what that looks like. And then tons of content at rebelgrove.com since the last time we talked to you. I mean, really just a lot. Recruiting over the weekend, some baseball stuff. Neil's story on Kyle Wakefield, who's kind of taken the conference and the nation by storm. He's got 10 thoughts. I posted 3 things this morning, including a look at who replaces Rivas, kind of what that looks like from an Ole Miss rotation as well. So, again, if you're not a subscriber, not a reader of rebelgrove.com, look, it's cheap. You can afford it no matter who you are or what you do. So come hang out with us, enjoy, and take part in the merriment that is rebelgrove.com there on this morning. The Oxford Exxon podcast, Highway 6 West, Beer Cave, lunch specials, and then coming up, Super Bowl. Anywhere that they have a Sweet Daddies, you can get the pulled pork, the ribs, the specials. We'll give you those as the week goes on, but you're going to get some specials through the Oxford Exxon and all Blue Sky locations that have that ability. So let them help you with your catering. Again, ribs, side items, desserts, and more. Maybe you care about the game. Maybe you care about Taylor Swift. Maybe you just want to eat good food and hang out with some buddies. Either way, you can get some ribs and pulled pork there from the Oxford Exxon. And Neil will tell you a little bit about Clark Ford.
Yep, Clark Ford's in Amory, Mississippi, 662-257-1900 is the number. Call it, ask for our friend Corey Clark. Tell Corey what Ford product you're looking for. He'll send you a quote within 15 minutes in business hours. It's right to the bottom line. There's no hassle. There's no haggle. You get your quote, and the rest is up to you. You can shop that quote around. You can do what I've done, what I recommend that you do, and that is hop into a Clark Ford today, 662-257-1900. Corey and the people at Clark Ford, they want to be your car guy. They want to be your truck guy. You'll find out what that means when you make the call, 662-257-1900. We'll have some guests at some point this week on the Campbell Clinic hotline. The Campbell Clinic is in Oxford now, 2608 South Lamar Boulevard, Suite 102, just across the street from the cottages at Hooper Hollow. The Campbell Clinic provides full-service orthopedic care, everything from sports medicine to foot and ankle surgery, to spine and total joint care, to pediatric orthopedics and physical therapy, and more. To book an appointment, go to campbellclinicoxford.com or call 901-759-3111. Walk-ins always welcome at the Campbell Clinic, Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. until 4 p.m.
So, jump into college basketball first. Again, Ole Miss, 91-77. Auburn, the winner. The Rebels took a 7 or 9 point lead into the half. They'd been very, very hot from the field in the first half, and I walked, I kind of walked out of my seat and down at halftime, and was talking to some people, and it was. You had sort of like the two sides of things at that point. I'd run into people who were just like very score dependent and went, hey, wow, up 7, up 9, this thing's rolling. And then you talk to the people that goes, we're screwed. It was like, because it was everything had gone in. Auburn had not made a lot. And you looked up at the rebounds and you went, oh my God, they're getting crushed on the boards. All these different things, and then it certainly turned from that point. Maybe you have the exact numbers, but I think Auburn shot 73% from the field in the second half. They just dominated inside, just lit things up in the post in all ways, points, rebounds, and took control. They came out of the break. They erased the lead pretty quickly, and then it was kind of back and forth there for a while, but for the most part, Auburn did take control, and then they dominated the last 10 minutes to pull out that win there, 91-77 Ole Miss, losing its fourth games of the season and then falling to 5-4 in the SEC. It's been an interesting reaction because we're not going to spend a ton of time. I got a couple game-specific questions that even I have, so I'm going to let you answer those. But beyond that, it's not really a minutia-type conversation today. Auburn's a team that can absolutely get into the second weekend, can challenge beyond that, and they were the better basketball team on Saturday, and it's what Bruce has built over a long time there. But so we'll start there, get it out of the way, because I got a couple big-picture things too. I'm assuming you felt the same way, that even when they went into the half, Auburn was certainly in control. Strictly matchups. Sharp didn't play, obviously. That does hurt him in the post. Cisse had to be very careful. Some different things there. Marshall was whatever. But in general, that's just simply a matchup that is too difficult for Ole Miss at this juncture of the program, right?
Yeah. Auburn's better than Ole Miss. If they played 100 times, Ole Miss would win a couple. But it would be freaky. The game was lost in the first half. Ole Miss came out playing pretty well, shooting the ball pretty well. They had Auburn sort of playing the game they wanted Auburn to play, which was more of a perimeter game. And I don't remember the exact number, but I want to say Auburn it was either 11 or 13 points that they got off missed threes. Man, you can't give that up. You can't give up second chance points like that. And then
including their first 2 threes of the game when Ole Miss was hot and was trying to kind of run away from them, and it still was like 11-6 because Auburn got those 2 big rebounds that turned into threes right there.
You had a chance, if you would have handled the glass at all, to have a 17, 18-point first half lead, which in the second half would have still been difficult to maintain, but it would have given you a better shot. And it would have taken some of the steam out of Auburn, some of the wind out of their sails at the half. But look, Janai Broom's going to play professionally. Ole Miss doesn't really have anyone that can guard him. In the second half, they got, as Chris said after the game, paint touch after paint touch after paint touch. Their passing was very crisp, and they were making shots. And when you shoot that well, it's 2 things. 1, you're hot. And 2, you are getting open looks. They were getting open looks. One open look after another open look. And then on the other end, Ole Miss was real. And you saw this right out of the gate in the second half. Ole Miss was really having to work offensively. They were having to expend a lot of energy offensively. And then Auburn's a deep team. It gets talked about, but I don't know that people really understand it. They play 10 guys at least 15 minutes. That means nobody's playing more than 26, 27 minutes because do the math. And they're fresh. And I thought late in the game, and Chris talked about it afterwards, I thought late in the game you saw a shift in body language. Ole Miss got tired, got a little beaten down, got a little frustrated. And Auburn went for the kill and got it. I mean, they
27,
really did.
25, 25, 26, 26 for the 5 guys.
It's remarkable. They're a deep club. They're really good. And Bruce is a terrific coach. He's been there a long time. He has established a culture. They're tough. They were due a road win, and they went and got it. And I think they fed off the crowd a little bit late. They kind of fed off silencing the crowd a little bit late. And, you talked about them being a second weekend sort of team. They are, for sure. I mean, you never know what's going to happen in the tournament, what kind of draw you get or don't get or that kind of stuff. But, if you told me that Auburn's an Elite 8 team in late March, I certainly buy it.
So this is where I get lost a little bit. I talk about I don't know basketball the way I do, certainly baseball and football even to an extent. There in the second half, everything for Ole Miss the last 12 minutes for sure. Everything was running through Flanagan and the ball was sticking on Allen. What was causing that? I mean, I'm sure they were certainly trying to take Juju out of the game. But
Yeah.
even he got tentative too, though. He had a few spots where he could have thrown something up that he would have on Tuesday night, and he didn't. What was because it from the very rudimentary eye, it looks like Flanagan is becoming a ball hog, but I know it's much more complicated than that. Why was the ball sticking there with him late?
Well, and this is where I don't know that they have enough playmakers to really. They don't have enough guys. Like if you don't watch a lot of NBA, I know. A lot of times in the NBA, you'll see they run offense, and then they get to 7 seconds left on the shot clock, and it's like, all right, this play didn't work. Go create something. Ole Miss doesn't have a lot of those guys. That's not Matt Morrell's game. That's not Alan Flanagan's game. I don't really think it's Brandon Murray's game. It is Juju Murray's game to an extent, but Auburn put bigger bodies on him, and they put new bodies on him. They put fresh bodies on him. They threw multiple looks at him. They wanted to get the ball out of his hands, and then once they got it into somebody else's hands, they didn't want to let him get it back. You see it a lot with guard-oriented teams in the NBA, guys who have high-scoring guards. You'll see a double thrown at them in the half court. They want to get the ball out of that guy's hands, and then they play deny. They deny him the ball back, run the shot clock down, and somebody else has to go take a shot. And you saw that with Ole Miss a lot. Man, they were really having to work in the second half to get possessions. And so that ends up looking like you end up looking like the ball's sticking because it is, but it's not sticking intentionally. It's not Kobe Bryant where you're like, hey, throw it to Kobe. Y'all clear it out. Michael Jordan. Throw it to him. Clear out. He might stand there for 10 seconds and dribble, but he's just surveying. They're panic ball. I thought you saw some panic shots in the second half. Some late shot clock. Someone's got to take it. That's just not Alan Flanagan's game. So people talk about Allen being a liability. Listen, if Alan Flanagan's not on this team, we're not even talking about basketball anymore right now. He was critical for them in the non-league.
He also had 2 buckets early in the second half that thing gets out of hand quicker if he doesn't. He gets the 3, comes back down, and maybe it was an and 1 or something, but he had 2 buckets there early in the second half that kind of kept it going a little bit.
His game's not built on him being the primary scorer. His game's built on him being like the 3rd or 4th scorer. And the problem for Ole Miss is that that's kind of Jamin Breakfield's game too. Cisse's not an elite offensive player. You've got to create offense for him. Matthew Morrell's game in an ideal world is he's the number 2 scorer. They just don't have that dude unless it's Juju Murray, which is a lot to ask of him to, hey, come in, new league, new team, new position.
New position, yeah.
Do it every night. Do it every night in the SEC. That's a lot to ask. I mean, that is a really tall ask. And look, at the end of the day, the big picture is this. They're 5-4 at the turn. They had to win one of the home games last week, and they did. They won one of them. Would it have been great to win 2 of them? Sure. Would the atmosphere on Saturday have been amazing at the end if Ole Miss would have found a way to beat Auburn? Of course. That was Bruce Pearl's 7th season. This is Chris Beard's first. There's a big. I mean, I'm not trying to talk down to anybody. There's a big difference between 7 years and 1 year in a program. And Bruce said as much. And Bruce is a great guy. He's a nice guy. And he's a typical basketball coach where if he can find a way to compliment the other guy, he's going to. But he wasn't providing lip service when he talked about the culture change at Ole Miss. Bruce would never say this because he likes Kermit and all that stuff, but he's coached enough games in Oxford and at the Pavilion to know that was different on Saturday. And Chris has done a terrific job, but there's no Janai Broom on the Ole Miss team. There's not that guy. What Auburn was able to do in the second half hey, you need a bucket? Let's go to the paint. Let's post him up. He's got these variety of moves. I thought one of the best plays he made, Broom, they got the ball to him down on the left block. Cisse did a pretty good job on him. He sort of regathered. He looked over, and I can't remember who the shooter was, but he spotted a shooter wide open, kind of on a diagonal pass. He made a crisp pass into the shooting pocket, and dude knocks down a three. And that was, to me, it was like a dagger. That was like an NBA play. That's a play you see at the high levels where you see talented post players draw the double team, maybe even sort of draw a triple team a little bit, see an open shooter, wait for the right moment, and they don't just pass it to him. They pass it to him in the shooting pocket. There's more to than just – you saw some passes from Ole Miss in the second half that were kind of erratic. The ball's bouncing on the ground. Guys are picking it up. Well, you're not getting a focused look at the bucket in that regard. I thought Broom was the key to the game. I just thought he was terrific. I think he's a great player, and he just had his way. And listen, Ole Miss isn't the only team that Janai Broom has his way with. And I just thought he had a really focused second half, and they have a lot of guys who can make buckets, and they shot well, and sometimes shooting well becomes contagious, and you're getting a lot of really good looks, and you're taking a crowd out of a game, and there's a reason that they're ranked where they are, and there's a reason that they are where they are in the league, and there's a reason that nobody wants to play them in the postseason. They're going to be a handful for somebody.
Ole Miss at 61 in the net at the turn here as we talk about this. And look, again, when we're doing the math, you said it, but it bears repeating. You're talking about getting to 9 or 10 wins. That's what you're talking about. That's what we've been talking about the whole dang time. And
probably 10.
Yeah.
Based on the net, probably 10.
And if you're trying to get there, there's still a path to that. You have one home game left that you're not a considerable favorite to whatever degree, and that's Alabama. They're damn good.
Yeah.
They come to Oxford.
Well,
but beyond that, you're okay on the
South Carolina too. South Carolina too.
Because they've won at Tennessee.
They got Alabama and South Carolina at home.
Carolina's a must-win, though. You can't lose that game and get there.
Well, not unless you pick up a game somewhere else. So the games that were sort of penciling as losses, right, are at South Carolina, at Kentucky, at Mississippi State, which I'm not really ready to pencil in as much anymore. That's a potential steal. But if you can steal one of those, well, that changes your calculus. But if you don't steal a game, your path to 10 wins is beat Missouri twice, beat South Carolina or Alabama at home, win at Georgia, and beat Texas A&M at home. Yes. Now, that's not easy, but it's doable. It's a pretty wide road. They're
analytically favored in 4 more.
So that gets you to 9. Then you got to get 1. If you get to 10, you're going to get in. And they're going to have to play well. But look, they don't play Auburn again. And I think there's a strong case to be made for Auburn being no worse than the second best team in the league. Auburn and Tennessee, I don't know when they play each other, but hopefully I haven't missed it already. But when they play, hopefully I'm someplace where I can watch that. That should be a hell of a game.
Again, 5:30 tomorrow, Ole Miss at South Carolina. Very difficult task. Carolina continues to play incredibly well under Lamont Paris in his second season.
They are, and they're playing well, and give Lamont Paris a ton of credit, and give that team a ton of credit. It has been a sea change. But now, look, they're not as talented as Tennessee, as Auburn, as Alabama. You know, there's a chance that there's a regression to the mean coming for them. Mm-hmm. We'll see. I mean, you got to play really well. The problem that they present is that they're big, they're physical, and they're going to watch that Auburn film, and they're going to try to do a lot of the same stuff. They're going to try to really get a lot of paint touches. I assume Jamarian Sharp will be back. It was an illness, not an injury.
But he's been dealing with it for like 2 weeks now. He wasn't 100% even against Arkansas.
But, you know, if you can get some minutes out of him, that's 5 fouls. You know, I thought Cisse played well. I really did. I thought he had a good game. That's a tall order.
Yeah. And I'll do a little bit of therapy session, and this is not a huge section of the fan base, but Saturday losing that game did not diminish what has been built quickly or the environment of that game in any way. That was a hell of an environment on Saturday. They did a great job. I mean,
Yeah.
there were even little subtle differences to the game script from a game op standpoint that all landed. I thought it was great. Like, they just didn't win the game, but it didn't change the fact that it was the second largest crowd in Pavilion history. Tuesday was the largest crowd in Pavilion history, and it was the best environment in the Pavilion's history on Saturday. It was even better than Tuesday. I mean, Auburn didn't overtake the arena. They did the powder out. The little light thing worked with the little blue tent thing to it, all that kind of stuff. Like, that is a credit that you build on and continue. It didn't go, hey, they lost the game, scrap it, done. No, just calm down. It's all right. Keep moving.
Chase,
Cool
if
here.
it were easy, everyone would do it.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, there's a life lesson, like, right? You tell your kids, all the time I remember, Campbell was her freshman year in college. She had finite math and she had business law and she had all this stuff and she was overwhelmed. And she was like, so I'm thinking about switching majors. And we had to have that speech about, look, if it were easy, everybody would do it. If it were easy, nobody would fail. Rebuilding a basketball program from 3 and 15 is not easy. It might take a minute. It's again why I thought Bruce Pearl's comments after the game were so eloquent. He's like, Chris has done in 6 months what it took me 3 years to do at Auburn.
Yeah.
Why?
No
why,
portal
why
back then.
Why do we not believe that? When he took over at Auburn, they sucked.
For 3. There were people questioning it, going, God, they're still 11th in the league. What's up?
Yeah, I mean,
Bruce can't
remember
get it
there was
done.
a stretch. There was a stretch where Ole Miss under Kennedy won like 9 in a row or 8 in a row or something like that. I don't know, a bunch against Auburn. That was becoming an automatic win. Well, I mean,
Yeah, Kermit was like a kryptonite to Bruce for a couple years there. It was.
Yeah, I mean, he's this is going to take a minute. But no, the environment was terrific. You had kids waiting 4 hours before the game, 5 hours before the game.
First kids in line at 11:30.
That's 5.5 hours before tip-off. Last year, they could have shown up 5.5 seconds before tip-off and still gotten T-shirts and front row seats. I mean, that's a remarkable accomplishment. No, look, they got beat by a better team, period. But the environment was terrific. So the challenge for Ole Miss now is when you come home next, when you play Missouri, which is not Auburn, which is not Mississippi State, you don't have the rivalry, you got to do it again. You got to fill it up for that game. That's what they've done at Auburn. No matter who they play at Auburn, man, that place is packed.
At worst, you got to get back to 6-6 in the SEC and have a good home environment and get going.
Yeah. But they had to win one last week. They did. Anybody who thought, they're going to sweep the week, okay, you're really being optimistic right now. I mean, you're really putting on your, in this case, powder blue glasses. And maybe, but home against Mississippi State and home against Auburn was going to be a tough task. You had to get one. And they did. And so now you go into the second half. You've got to beat Missouri twice. That gets you to 7. You've got to beat Texas A&M at home. That's 8.
And at Athens is becoming more winnable by the minute.
By the minute. I think you've got to win there. I watched a good bit of Georgia the other day. They play hard, but they're having a really tough time getting over the hump in games. It's happening consistently. Well, that gets you to 9. And then you're going to have to earn one. I mean, Alabama's really good. I watched them they just disposed of Mississippi State.
99-67.
Alabama's defensive performance in the first half was elite. You're going to have to earn that one. The game at Mississippi State, like I mentioned, look, I don't know. You watch them play, and I've watched them play a good bit, and they're good. And the metrics still say they're in good shape, but they're 3-6 in the league. And Chase, sometimes scoring for them is hard. And they'll be better at home, of course. But I'm not ready to just analytically look at that game and go, oh, yeah, that's an L. Even though typically I'm always say, hey, it's in Oxford, Ole Miss wins. If it's in Starkville, State wins. But it's doable. But you're going to have to go earn one, whether it's against South Carolina at home, whether it's at South Carolina. You're going to have to go earn a game. It's not. That's the league now.
Making the tournament is not just walking into it. Yeah, especially with what they have going on right now.
If it were that easy, everyone would do it. And you look around. I mean, look at the league right now. Missouri was in the tournament last year. Now that 0-9, 0-8. Arkansas was 2 Elite Eights and a Sweet 16 the last 3 years, and they're imploding. They're a carnival ride, and not a good one. Like where you're not buckled in. I mean, it's not easy. There's not. It's a tough slog. You knew it would be, and here you go. But at least you're in it.
Yeah,
this time last year you weren't in it.
Last thing on that, yeah. Look, Sharp getting back and giving any minutes to lets Brakefield play more of his real position. He had to play so much more post and was just taken out of the game on Saturday. It was a bad situation inside all the way around. The matchup and the bodies that Ole Miss had available. That was a bit of a baptism for Marshall in there.
It was, and he was overwhelmed in spots. Mm-hmm. Again, sometimes you have to tip your cap to the other team. And that was one of those nights. They had an elite second half.
Yeah.
They had a Final Four caliber second half. Bruce, I promise you, would love to take that second half, put it in a bottle, and have it at his disposal whenever he wanted down the stretch. Because if they can play like that for extended periods of time, they're going on a long run.
You mentioned the Vols. They go into Lexington and win 103-92, causing Kentucky to go 0-2 at home on its week. The Wildcats now 5-4 in the SEC. The Volunteers 6-2. 103-92, and honestly, it kind of looked like Auburn Ole Miss a little bit. Tennessee just dictated the second half, never let Kentucky get any type of momentum going whatsoever. And, I mean, physically, that was kind of an ass-kicking on Saturday at Rupp, honestly. That was a mess.
Not kind of.
Yeah, that was
the worst thing that happened to Tennessee to Kentucky last week was Tennessee lost to South Carolina. That was bad, dude. That was bad news. Tennessee was focused.
Yeah, Cal was probably watching that game going, I'd like the Vols to win this by 38 right now. I'd like for them to.
Tennessee was locked in, and they can do a lot of things on both ends of the court. They're a group of adults, man.
Look, I know the bodies they have. We all know the talent. And if Ole Miss loses this game by 29, that's fine. I'm not predicting anything. I'm not completely that Ole Miss can't go play into Rupp right now because Rupp gets weird as hell if that game's close. They're getting more pissed off with Cal by the day. And he's starting to do these little things. And, on the grand scale, does it really matter? No. But he's doing this, while it might even be true to some extent, some excuse making, hey, we just got to get healthy, we're young, I love my blah, 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 all that crap. And then Kyle Tucker pointed it out, and Kentucky fans notice everything with that basketball program. Like, Cal was avoiding some post-game interviews and stuff on Saturday, and it's like, oh, no.
Mm-hmm.
Just.
Again, like we talk about stealing one, that's one that you could steal.
You've seen that. Now, two dang good teams did it.
There and won. People have gone up there and won this year. You can go up there and win. Got to play well. But their fans kind of – they're there to see Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
And if Kentucky plays well, they'll applaud them. And if Kentucky plays poorly, they'll turn against them.
Yeah.
And you can be on the floor when that happens against them. And they're a young team. And I've told you, I don't know that they adjust in game as well as some other teams do. In fact, I know they don't.
Yeah.
And that game against Tennessee, that thing was on its way to a 20, 25-point game.
You mentioned it multiple times. I said the score a second ago. Alabama 99-67 over the Bulldogs. The Tide now 8-1 in the SEC. They're ahead in the league. Mississippi State 3-6 now. They've got winnable games, but by God, they better win them. They're losing absolutely all the margin they have. They were down 47-24 at halftime there at Coleman Coliseum. LSU routed the Razorbacks 95-74 in Baton Rouge. They were up 15 at the half and then coasted in from there. You mentioned Georgia, Mike White, now 4-5 in the SEC after the hot start. South Carolina wins 72-62 in Athens. Vanderbilt 68-61 over Missouri in a game that I assume no one but half families watched there in Nashville. The Tigers 0-9, Vanderbilt 1-7. And then a hell of a game. Texas A&M does hold serve at Reed Arena, wins the home game 67-66 against Florida. A&M now 4-4 in the league. Florida 5-4 in the SEC.
My Gators had that game the whole way, and then about
Just
10-minute mark, they just blew it. I mean, I was like, "Look at us! We're about to be 6-3. We're about
Rolling.
to have about a 30 net. We're about to start cruising into the tournament." I was going to be able to start the Todd Golden for President campaign, and then that happened. Wade Taylor the fourth, he's a bad man.
Mm-hmm.
Texas A&M they don't have a lot, but they got him.
Wade Taylor.
And he is mentally, that cat is what you want in a closer. He's what you want in a cornerback. He does not remember the last shot. I didn't hit the rim. I didn't hit the goal. I don't care. I'm good.
2 games on Tuesday. Again, the Rebels and the Gamecocks, 19-3, 7-2 for South Carolina. That's 5:30 SEC Network Central Time. And then the back half of that doubleheader is Kentucky at Vanderbilt tomorrow night. So Wildcats will get healthy in Nashville against the Commodores tomorrow night.
They should. That should be a get well game.
I mean,
you got to really generate your own stuff there.
Looking, the only game Wednesday, and we'll talk about this much more as the week goes on, that really is interesting to me, and it is one that's hellaciously interesting, is the Crimson Tide is headed to Neville Arena on Wednesday night.
My anticipation is that Auburn's going to pop them, but boy, it's an opportunity for Alabama.
They really put a stranglehold on the SEC at that point.
Kind of a free shot in a lot of ways because they already held serve at home against Auburn, and they're in great shape at the turn, and they look really good right now. That should be a really fun game.
It was pointed out in our stream, too, that Auburn and Tennessee played just one time this season, and it's in Knoxville. So February 28th at Tennessee for that game.
It's worth watching.
So, switch over a little bit. Still got a little while before we really start breaking down baseball for dang sure. They open up the season February 16th. I think it's 16th. In Hawaii, they play a 4-game set against the Warriors out there. They come home. Their home opener is that following Wednesday against Arizona State. But the big news happened on Friday night. They were doing an inter-squad. They were going under the lights. And around 7:30 in the second inning of the inter-squad, Xavier Rivas tore the UCL in his left elbow. He knew it immediately. I was told by people in attendance that it wasn't the crazy shotgun pop that you hear sometimes, and frankly happened to me when I had mine, but there was an audible sound when it happened. He yelled a couple expletives and then said as he was leaving the field, "It's done." So he knew it pretty much immediately there as he left. I wrote a big profile on him in the summer. I feel sick for him. He kind of chose to come back. He had worked on some extra pitches, done a lot of really off-season work here to get in the best situation that he could going into this year. And now Tommy John surgery coming up here soon. It is a fact of life in college baseball in all facets. Just really overtaking the sport to where I think the teams that win the title were the ones that don't get hurt as much when June gets here for the most part on the highest level. But from an Ole Miss standpoint, look, you already knew JT Quinn was going to be a weekend starter. I think you knew that Liam Doyle, the transfer from Coastal Carolina, was probably going to be a weekend starter. And then I think this really brings Grayson Saunier back into focus, somebody who had a ton of success in high school, was a huge recruit, and just struggled as a freshman last year in a league that was very hard to pitch in, period, and especially for freshmen. I talked to Mike on Saturday afternoon. He said that, you're seeing what you want out of those kids that are now sophomores, just from a composure standpoint, just handling it better. It's not even about stuff. It's just about you're a year older and you're a little more experienced, and, you see what you got. I'll say this, and I wrote it this morning in my little 3 things deal, is I think Riley Maddox is the wild card here. He was out with Tommy John last year. Nobody's really seen much of him since midway through his freshman year. And Mike was using him in a bullpen role, but that's not his best role. His best pitch is a sinker. That's not really a late game thing at all. I think he's a starter. I think he's a guy that absolutely could impact things as a starting pitcher in this league. But look, you can't minimize what happened to Xavier Rivas. You can't act like it doesn't matter to this program. It's in today's world of college baseball, you need as many arms as possible. I've written and said this multiple times. Only two pitchers in the SEC averaged 5.4 innings a start or more last year. Brandon Sproat at Florida and Paul Skeens at LSU. You need as many arms as possible to get 81 outs over a weekend, whatever the hell that looks like. And Rivas was going to be a big part of that. So it's a monumental blow. I will say this, and most people know this, especially people who follow us every day. And I know, as I told Yo that day, Twitter is not real life. Social media is not real life. It doesn't just happen to Ole Miss. It happens to freaking everyone. What has happened to Ole Miss is that they have had a lack of depth on the mound, so it becomes more obvious to their record than it does some teams. Arkansas just keeps losing ace after ace after ace over the course of the last 3 or 4 years.
Literally,
they just got hammered.
The last 2 years, they have lost their ace right about this time.
Yeah, Peyton Pallette didn't play. He got hurt.
Pallette didn't play. Jackson Wiggins got hurt. And, I mean, look, he was a little bit erratic, but he was a high potential guy. The Cubs took him in the second round. And are really excited about him. I mean, to your point, what you see out of most teams, Skeens was the exception, frankly, last year. What you see out of most teams is more of a by committee approach to getting through games. You're getting your starter, hey, can you get me to the fourth? Can you get me to the fifth? And I'm going to go to these guys. And so to your point, and you're exactly right, when you lose from that inventory, lose volume, your ability to do that over the course of weekend after weekend gets minimized. The path gets narrower. And so that's the hard part. Mostly, and you said this off the top, I'll just reiterate it. I hate it for the kid. I don't even know him. I hate it for the kid. I despise injuries. I always feel so bad, especially as I get older and you see your kids and your kids' friends and how hard they work to get ready for a season. And you know how hard these kids work and how much they give up. And God, they're on the cusp of the season and you blow your elbow out. And that sucks. I mean, it really does. That's who you mostly just – my first thought right now is I just feel sorry for him. I feel sorry for his family. Everybody I know is really disappointed. And then when you're Mike, you got to try to figure it out. Now, I mean, the good news, and I mean that with other than that, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln?
Yeah. You
got a couple of weeks to formulate. It didn't happen the day before you left for Honolulu, for example, but you're going to have to trust some guys maybe early that you weren't as prepared to trust.
They have more depth than last year. They made a point to go get more left-handers, more guys that can play matchups to kind of fix their errors here. But no, it's a monumental loss. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Had it happened last year, and I know everybody's going, "Hey, Chase, they went 6-24, idiot," but they would have been completely done because they had no hope of even putting a path together that makes sense. They do have arms now that at least you can figure out how to make it work in a perfect world. I mean, Dord's asking.
But you see this,
yeah.
You see this in baseball all the time. It's more and more with pitching, and it's a problem in the game. You see major league teams, they're not only staffing their major league staff, they're spending a lot of their offseason putting together a AAA staff that can kind of go back and forth. Everyone's building depth because it's a war of attrition. And that's more the case now at the college game than ever before, from what I can tell. I don't know why that is. I don't know whether there's some big picture story that's out there about kids just throwing too much at a too young of an age and all of that stuff.
We're so velocity dependent right now. It's just
everyone's trying to throw as hard as possible, and you see guys
at the macro. We all know it's a problem, but at the micro level, nobody stops it.
Yeah, because if you want to get that college scholarship, when the coaches come to the showcase, you better hit 96.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was a time, man, not that long ago, where the kid that threw 94, 95, he was a fireballer.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, oh, he's got a good arm. It's like, what?
Yeah.
And I mean, to consistently throw the baseball 99, 100 miles an hour, that kind of stuff, you're taking your biology to its limits.
Yeah. No, Tommy John is not a career ender. If anything, it has enhanced some guys' careers. Now, that carries a weird connotation because I frankly think there's some kids who want to have the surgery to try to throw harder after the surgery. I think you're having almost a bit of an epidemic of that where kids are not doing it on purpose, but almost have some elation, frankly, when they get hurt, as long as they can be patient there with that. And it's a bad deal. It's not a great sign. Doors, yeah, you're just signing as many capable pitchers as possible and then figuring out role. You're not recruiting to middle relief or anything else. You're just taking dudes and then trying to figure out where they can work or where they cannot work. There's no doubt about that. And look, this is going to be the low point this week for Xavier and all that stuff. I mean, Mike said, he was almost a little emotional with it on Saturday because he said, look, for the program, we've got to figure it out for him. And then he kind of stopped himself and he goes, we'll recover or we'll be all right or whatever he said. He kind of stopped for a minute. But it's if you're Xavier, you got to get back. You got to get into the comeback, recover mindset quickly. And you look to guys like Josh Mallitz and Riley Maddox and goes, it feels like forever, but it's not that long. Just go get the surgery and got to go through your processes. And then as it gets closer and you start working, I think mentally. But yeah, from the excitement and the adrenaline and everything that you kind of had coming right here. Because look, I think Ole Miss is really going to hit. I like their lineup a ton. It's the arms that I keep coming back to see what it looks like as we move forward here toward Hawaii. Media days on Friday, by the way. 12:30, I think, something like that. Mike will talk, people will talk. It is what it is. Got a couple stories coming prior to that as well. But anyway, that's the baseball thing. The other injury news, and I do think this is relevant and worth mentioning while I'm on the topic, Campbell Smithwick, the freshman catcher out of Oxford, he's dealing with a stress reaction in his big toe. Mike told me that is a precursor to a stress fracture if you did not get off of it and protect it. He's not in a boot, but he's in a lift, like a metal thing in his shoe to keep it from bending and keep pressure off of it. It's not a long-term injury at all. Once he comes back and he doesn't feel any pain, he's 100%. He's completely fine. It's not something that lingers, but it does put his season opener in jeopardy there in Hawaii. They're hopeful, but not certain that he will be back. And look, it is a place that always has had premier catchers. They're really young. They're really inexperienced there at catcher. So it's something to watch because right now their current available catchers on the roster are Eli Birch, who is a JUCO transfer from Chipola, originally from Jackson, and then Trenton Lyons, the true freshman out of Memphis. And that's it. That's who their catchers are without Smithwick. So you're talking JUCO transfer who's never called at the D1 level, freshman, even with Smithwick back. Smithwick is the starter if he's healthy and playing to his capability. And I'm going back through my head. Cooper Johnson might be the only freshman who's ever started for Mike over the course of his tenure at catcher, and that was not every day because Fortes caught some that year too. But anyway, something to watch there. You've got this pitching situation, and JT Quinn admitted that there is a big difference in throwing to these guys versus throwing to Calvin Harris, who had been around for so long last year that it's. He goes, I'm not saying it's even a detriment when we get into it, but it's certainly something to adjust to because they simply just aren't as seasoned and aren't as understanding of the college game as expected as somebody like Calvin Harris, who's been around for years. So, yeah. No, Drew, Tommy John's not 100% to return stronger at all. It can still be, it's a surgery. You're taking a ligament out of one part of your body and putting it in another part of your body. It's not some guarantee. It just has become more mainstream. It's the new ACL. So, I don't know how much the Hawaii trip costs, but they'll be all right. They can afford it. It'll be okay. They made $166,000 last year. That'll cover the cost of the trip.
Think of how many defensive linemen you could buy with the cost of this trip. We got to start. I'm kidding.
Look, there is a good chance all the collectives at some point go in-house. How you budget what percentage is going here versus here will be a fascinating thought process and exercise as we move forward.
the battle the coaches will have internally. The rivalries will no longer be Alabama versus Auburn. It will be basketball versus baseball, football versus basketball.
Yeah. Tell me all about the long snapper. Ole Miss can commit from the number one long snapper in the country over the weekend.
He can really snap it, man.
Can he?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Your goal as a snapper is to never be mentioned. You're like an umpire. I hope no one ever knows my name.
I want to be a 4-year starter and no one be able to tell you my name.
Yeah. It means things went perfectly smooth. All good.
Yep. Did you see I thought this was interesting. I wrote about it in 10 Thoughts. You and I sort of talked about it on, I think, Friday when we were talking about something different. ESPN got their writers, Chris Lowe and all those cats, to predict the 12-team playoff. Every one of them had Ole Miss in it. One had them as low as 9. One had them as high as 6. Everybody had them 6, 7 for the most part. I wrote about this. This is going to be a challenge and I've covered this beat now. This will be 17 seasons in the fall.
How's that feel?
Old. But Ole Miss fans, and I'm not criticizing, this is just true, and you guys know what I'm about to say, and you know I'm right. So when you get mad at me, go look in the mirror. They really love the no respect. That is a fueling thing. And they also kind of love a little bit of us against the world. Nope, you don't have that now.
No, the hell with that. Georgia had that against TCU, Neil. Georgia, nobody believed in us.
I mean, when Lane at some point in August says, nobody believes in us, I'm going to be like, dude, I've read. What?
He'll pull a Kirby. He'll look for any little slide in something and go, see?
The guy that picked him to be 9th, he's going to be like, see? No, look at that guy. He thinks we suck. Like, you're 9th. It's interesting, really. What it told me, and you and I talked about this, is this season coming up, it's undeniable. There's a long time between now and then. We'll talk about it, but it's playoffs or bust. It is pass fail. There's no middle ground. It's not telling your kid when he's in pre-calc, ask me how I know, hey, dude, just can you get a C? You all right? Can you just No. It's you're either going to finish in the playoff. And look, 12 teams are going to
Citrus Bowl is a failure.
Yes, 12 teams are making the playoffs. 11 are going to lose in the playoff. It is what it is. But if you make the playoffs, it's a successful season. If you don't, it's failure, and that is new ground for Ole Miss. Really, it is. I think maybe you disagree.
No.
Maybe somebody can tell me about the 1960 something season, and I'll just nod along. But since I've been on the beat, that's new ground. There's never really been a season where, all right, well, here's the deal. We either make this playoff with the elites of the game or it's bad. 9-3 and a trip to the ReliaQuest Bowl is failure. We are not that far removed from that being a really good season.
Oh,
the landscape has changed. I just thought that was interesting that you will not be able to play the no respect card. I guess you could say, hey, no one's picking us to win the SEC. Okay.
I thought it was a really interesting thought exercise on the board the other day because you have people that think both ways. And it defines what you're talking about is what is the expectation? What do you actually see as your goal? Is the guy who goes, would you rather have a bye or would you rather host a first-round playoff game? And it's like, you're choosing event over being in a better spot in the tournament. Happy to be here. But actually what you're doing, and it's why, look, the answer is you want to buy because you're trying to win a national championship. But I do get what the guy's saying. He's going, hosting a home playoff game is an experience that is unlike anything else in this program's history and in this school's athletic history, probably.
And is
that not a really cool freaking thing?
And you'd have time to get your team ready.
Yeah.
You'd have some time to get everybody healthy. The problem with those championship games is that you got to play a game. Sometimes people get hurt in games. And so, you come out of that game with let's say you win the SEC. You play Georgia or Texas or whatever in Atlanta and you win the game and you get a bye.
Get the bye.
You're banged up as hell when a team comes off of a first round win with momentum.
Yeah, when
to
Oregon
play.
heads to Oxford after they beat Oklahoma State in the first round, and you go, oh,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, the playoffs will be an interesting thing, and there's a story out today that this 12-team playoff might only last 2 years. Nobody knows what the future of this thing is because the Pac-2 idiots are hanging on for dear life, and the ACC's fighting, and basically, and the groundwork of this is getting laid on an almost daily basis now. The Big Ten and the SEC are beginning to go, you know what? We're in this together, and let's be real. That is
no,
happening.
they both said this has nothing. They are vehemently against anyone insisting that has anything to do with a breakup whatsoever.
Yeah, I have a head
Sankey
full of
said
hair.
that. The new dude for the Big Ten said that.
Yeah, sure. The story today where they're
Fingers
like, look,
crossed.
the story today where they were like, look, we went to Dallas or whatever for we were thinking Houston. They went to Houston, met before the championship game, and they're like, hey, we need to have a vote on this, but it's got to be unanimous. And the Pac-2's like, okay, all right, have fun. This is not going to last like this. We have the power. We're going to exercise it. The contract expires after 2025. You're guaranteed 2 years of a 12-team.
So you're putting more validity into this partnership than the alliance between the ACC, the Pac-12, and
Yeah, because that was like this post-COVID weird thing. Hey, we're going to all protect ourselves. It's a handshake deal. Hell, they didn't even handshake. It was a Zoom shake deal.
mm-hmm.
Well, this is different. Now we've got this big contract, and you've got this big contract, and let's be real. We're the only two leagues that matter. We've got all the power. We can make all the money. Why are we giving 10% to this? Why are we agreeing to go into a playoff where every team that makes it, that's $4 million for the league? Why are we giving up $8 million right off the bat, and then another 4 when you win, and then 6, and then 6? Why are you giving up money so that the ACC can maybe get a second team? They don't deserve a second team. That's what the SEC says. What the Big Ten says. They believe it. They're kind of wondering, why are we doing this automatic? It's ending. It's just not going to happen. My prediction, I feel really good about it. I don't know whether it's 12 team or 16 team or 14 team or whatever, but the SEC and the Big Ten are going to exercise their power. And if that means at some point breaking off and just having their own NFL-style playoff, I could totally buy it.
What year would you put on that?
2026. 2026. The everybody else is running out of time to just admit your spot in the pecking order. Own it, accept it, deal with it, or you can fight it and ultimately lose.
Yeah. Try to do the best with it you can. Is what it is.
Yeah, the Fox and ESPN are not going to get worked up over whether or not they get the ACC runner-up in the damn tournament. That's not going to do it.
Did you watch a ton of Pro Bowl yesterday?
Pro Bowl?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no. Not really. I mean, I saw a little bit of the little flag football game.
I didn't even see a second of anything. Nothing.
Not really. I was kind of watching. I was watching Suits. If you want to know the truth, I was binging Suits a good bit.
Where you at in Suits?
Middle of season 2.
You into it?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Okay.
I just sort of block out that Meghan Markle is an insane psychopath and just let her.
I will be curious as you go to see if you like her or not as time goes on. If you kind of can forget that and let her just be Rachel Zane and not like whatever and let it be okay. I'll tell you this. I think you're going to like it more as it goes because I'm not spoiling it for anybody. I know it was the most popular show on Netflix, so I will be a little careful here. I've seen it all the way through. Um, it's so serialized in the middle, where I mean, in the beginning, where you're just watching an episode, and it's almost like Law and Order. It's like they're going to come up with a great reveal, and then this is going to happen, and you're kind of like, okay, whatever. I will say that it gets a little more heart, a little more arc to it as it goes, where it turns into more of some sentimentality and the type of show that you probably really get into. So I think you're gonna really like it as time goes on. It turns into a little more of a show that's not just simply about the procedural of the episode. So
Yeah, I've enjoyed it so far.
it's a good one for
I mean,
you. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's good for me. It's kind of right on my.
Pocket's got a good point. You have to accept it's a soap opera. If you can do that, it's delightful. You can't consider it prestige TV, where you're like putting it up against Mad Men or something and going, hey, this is the smartest writing I've ever seen and this is phenomenal. It's like, no, it's kind of a male or female soap opera, and it's smart enough. You'll be kind of entertained. It's not dumb. It's okay.
You just said the word. You just said the word. People make this too complicated.
Yeah.
Am I entertained? When I'm laying here with the ice pack on my knee and I've got it on, am I entertained for 45 minutes? If the answer's yes, then good. If the answer's no, then bad. It's not complicated.
Yeah. Not everything has to be The Sopranos.
No.
It's okay.
There's lots of stuff that's perfectly good that's not critically acclaimed.
And you have season 9 available on Prime, by the way. 8 seasons are on Netflix, and then the final season is on Prime, so you're good for the final.
Oh, I'm good.
Whenever you
We're streaming everything, man.
Okay. I will say that the final season is a little melded in, and they're trying to get there, but they do kind of an Office thing where they're like, "Hey, we're gonna try to fix you though here. We're gonna try to solve this all for you a little bit." So we'll see.
How'd you handle Apollo Creed dying on Thursday?
So
I didn't know till Friday.
Stallone's video was tough. You know, what I found interesting was, to me, he's just Rocky and Apollo. Like, that's my only place I go with him. But people know Carl Weathers from a lot of different stuff, depending on, where in his career.
He was on Arrested Development one episode and was brilliant. I mean,
Was he really?
But to me, he's Apollo Creed.
It's tough because, Rocky is a little bit, and I mean the franchise, it's a little bit of without age for me, because I became such a fan of it as a kid, but it's not like I watched them in theaters. I mean, it's more your era as far as when that came out. I was catching them on VHS, and I mean, I've told the story. I'd go to Ray's Rent-A-Movie in Amory, and I would go rent Rockies, and you have to like sign the sheet thing when you put it out. It was just my name all the way down it, where I was just getting the Rocky movies over and over and over and over again. And I've got all these like almost childhood memories around the series, to where it was ageless. And now for Weathers to die, for Sly to be much older than maybe you think when you don't, unless you really put your mind to it and think about it in that way. Yeah, In the Heat of the Night. I mean, my great grandmother used to watch In the Heat of the Night when she would watch me or babysit me or whatever, and I knew it from that too. Doris says Chief Forbes. I did not remember his name, but yeah, I don't know. There was something almost to age and people passing away, beyond the Kobe or unexpected, but just getting older, that I think you never would have thought this. It's never where my brain would have went, but I think Carl Weathers is one of the evidence of that, and something that kind of affected me in that way that's remarkable. So it sucks. I mean, I think that's the only kind of main thought I had as I saw it and happen. Because, what was he, 76? Did I have that right?
76.
Okay.
Yeah, man, it hit me like Friday afternoon. I'd spent Thursday on that Wakefield story pretty intense, like pretty locked in for 9-10 hours, and still had the adrenaline sort of coursing through my veins that night, where I really couldn't sleep. And I got up on Friday, and it's probably the most feedback I've ever gotten from anything I've ever written. And so it was kind of overwhelming, and I had rehab, and Laura and Campbell left for a girls' weekend, and Carson wasn't here, and I'd been on the phone with I think Richard Cross, we were talking about, he was kind of getting ready for his broadcast, and we were talking about the Wakefield story. And someone sent me a text about Carl Weathers. I didn't know. I had not been on Twitter for the last couple hours. And man, I don't know, it was like someone reached in and took a piece of my childhood and just lit it on fire. I was stunned at how kind of like, I guess I was already kind of emotional, and it just, man, it hit me hard. Just because I remember, unlike you, because I'm older, I remember as a 12-year-old waiting in line. Ruston had at the time, there were there was one movie theater showed two movies at a time.
Yeah, we had one of those too. Twin Cinema.
Yeah, and so the line to get into Rocky 3, if you wanted to get into Rocky 3, it was sort of like if you wanted a student ticket the other day, man. You had to commit a little time. And after that movie, man, I was ready to fight. I was ready to fight Marvin Hagler right there. Whoever, I was ready to go. I was ready to run through a wall. And that was the best. Like that, one of my, like if you ask me to remember a movie theater experience, that's probably the one that comes to mind. And Rocky 3 wasn't a great movie. The end of it was awesome, but
it's not a great film. No,
I mean,
no.
Rocky Balboa and Apollo Creed, man, they were bigger than life. I mean, it was just such a.
I guess props to Sly because he was the writer. Those are two great names in a movie. I mean, you even started it right there. Apollo Creed and Rocky Balboa. You're like, I'm in.
It was awesome.
I'm good.
Awesome.
Go ahead.
And
Clubber Lane. Ian.
But, you know, like Rocky 3 that night, that was the first time that you went from, man, I hate Apollo Creed. We're trying to beat Apollo Creed to, oh, Apollo Creed's this great dude.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I mean, he's remaking Rocky and running on the beach and all that stuff. And I know whatever, people can make fun, but man, as a 12-year-old kid, it was phenomenal.
Nobody can go to the most clumsy, unathletic human to a specimen faster than Rocky Balboa. In like a week and a half, and he's got my agility, and then he turns into Marvin Hagler in like a week and a half. It's the damnedest thing you've ever seen every time. Can't jump rope at all, doesn't know what to do, and Adrian goes win, and suddenly he's just, I mean, we're rolling.
Well, and that scene at the end of Rocky 3, you know, where he says, you know, it's a shame we got to get old, or exactly however he says it. That stood the test of time. That scene did, because it really resonated on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shame you got to get old.
A little bit of this is for, I think this is actually maybe interesting to people beyond me and you, but I haven't explained, you and I have not mentioned this. So I was curious for a couple different reasons, which I don't have to get into at the moment, but our field, journalists, everybody's on Twitter so much, and we talk about it being a tool for putting people back to the site and linking and all that. And I still think it's important. I think putting links are there, and you might as well because nothing else. But the analytics I've been looking at them a little more on social media, Neil. So Xavier Rivas, again, tears his UCL. I had a story pre-written because I knew the answer, but when Mike confirmed it, I published it when I was walking over to basketball on Saturday afternoon. And as of this morning, that tweet, Xavier Rivas tore his UCL on Friday, is out for the season, he's expected, blah, 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 with a link. Put the story link in there. It has been seen on Twitter 252,000 times, okay?
Okay.
Do you know how many people clicked the link of those 252,000?
Oh, God. 1 out of every 20?
392. Of 252,000.
What are the analytics on my Wakefield story? Do you know?
As of yesterday, I don't. I know the total number of views was like somewhere around 50,000.
Who had actually clicked the link?
That was the story analytics period, not on Twitter. Yes, that was like
okay.
the actual story analytics that I found out of our Chartbeat account. My tweet on it from the other night. Hold on, real quick, and I'll tell you.
Thursday night.
Yeah, that is correct. Let's see. Let me find it. 1 second. Here we go. Analytics. It has been viewed 123,000 times and has 5,078 clicks off Twitter.
Yeah.
So 3%, 3.5% clicks.
Just unbelievable.
Nobody clicks.
Nobody reads.
So if you think you're going to Twitter and really moving content, good luck, bud. Thanks. They either ingest your content organically from the site or wherever they want to be participating, or they don't, unless it is something stupid viral. And even then, if you give them any information at all in the tweet, they're cool. That's enough. I don't know. It's almost making me try to figure out how to re-engineer writing the tweets a little bit. I'm kind of running it through in my head as time goes on. So
to try to get people to click.
Well, I mean, you're not going to, but you can probably improve it a little bit. But you have to give away nothing. And that is the counter opposite of what most people do. So, just interesting. I don't know.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. So, just a quick note there. Xavier Rivas' story went from 252,000 views to 300 clicks off social media. Yeah, I mean, I guess Jay Robertson makes a point. Now that X has rev share, the money is posting the content there. You're literally trying to generate. It's why a lot of people are trying to ignite fights with some of their tweets because they technically get credit for any conversation that goes below their tweet from a rev share money standpoint because you can get revenue back from Twitter for whatever you produce as long as you fit a couple different criteria there on the site. So anyway. That's where that goes. We'll talk some Chancellor stuff tomorrow. I met with Glenn Boyce on Friday. That podcast up at MPW Digital. But a few things from that I wanted to expound on and talk about as the week moves on as well. And then obviously we'll have South Carolina Ole Miss tomorrow night. Some Super Bowl stuff because it's coming up on Sunday. I saw Mike Freeman of USA Today. He apologized to all the Swifties this morning and said that it is actually true love, and he was wrong with Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he has a column on that this morning. So,
well, that's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It would be somewhat, I mean, as cynical as we all are, it would be somewhat disappointing if you found out it was all a scam.
Well, I agree with that. Sure. Yeah. And yes, Pocket Watch, people do still read, for sure. You just have to find them. I mean, yes. Bookstores stay in business for a reason. So
it's hard to get younger people don't read as much though, I don't think. They consume differently.
Look, I'm part of the problem because I would rather hold a book, and I'm the guy who wishes I had a newspaper delivered to my house every morning. I read on a Kindle and I listen to audiobooks. Is what it is.
I can't do the audiobook thing. I've kind of tried a little. I need to try again. I don't know that I drive. I think if I drove more, I would listen to audiobooks.
I do it just doing chores around the house. I'm like washing dishes or laundry or whatever, and it's just kind of, I don't run to them because I don't want to take my phone on my run. But if I'm just kind of around, but you got to be able to listen. You can't be doing 9 other things that are taking your time. That's why I started with self-help books because it sounds like podcast. And then I've graduated into some fiction as time has gone on.
Laura watched the Grammys last night, and I'd limp in there a little bit. Sometimes I have no idea who that is. Don't care. Don't know who that is. Don't care.
I didn't even know it was on until this morning, and I saw that Taylor had dominated the evening, apparently.
I sat in here and I watched Thunder Raptors, which went to double overtime, and texted and DM'd recruits.
Those stories up at RoyalGrove.com as well on the 2025 signing class. Yeah. Very notable key class there as we move through the
it's really depressing. Just to be honest.
So not today's.
I hate that number. I hate writing it. I've learned to hate it.
Not the conversation for today. Yeah, as we close, Jay, you are right. I did see that on Twitter. The Tracy Chapman, Luke Combs fast car crossover was good last night. I will give him that. That was I
got called into the room when that happened, and it was legitimately really good.
Yeah,
she's a legend.
So
she did that, by the way. didn't have the little earpiece thingy. Mm-hmm. Just no lip sync. That was just
knew it.
her just singing the song without the and I mean, look, a lot of the people who are awesome, don't get me wrong, they use the thing to be able to hear, so that because there's a lot of outside noise and acoustics, and not her. She just
No auto. Yeah, I fix say no auto tune there. We're just singing like it's.
yeah,
it's
and he's very talented also.
he is. So, all right, rebelgrove.com. A lot of content, as we said. And then tomorrow, Chancellor Talk, some Super Bowl stuff. We'll talk more basketball and then anything that goes on in football, as always, as that is going to be the focus of the next months leading up to the 2024 football season. So, thanks for watching the stream, as always, and wherever you listen. Thanks for supporting all of our sponsors, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.